Hey guys, welcome to Mad Scientist BBQ. I'm Jeremy Yoder, and today we're cooking something that might look a lot like brisket, but it's not. It's an Argentine cut called Vaso. I know you're probably asking, what is Vaso? Well, it doesn't really exist in the United States. It's actually three cuts in the United States: the inner skirt, the flank steak, and the bavette. You might think, well, what's it called in English? It doesn't even really have an English name. It's vacío. In Spanish, it means void, basically. It comes from the empty area, kind of in front of the back leg of the cattle, but before you get to the rib cage, that is the vacío, that void. And this is a highly prized cut in places like Argentina. And when I was there, I was thinking, wait a second, I bet we could put that thing on a smoker and make it even more amazing, because there's fat on both sides, there's a little bit of fat in between, there's some connective tissue. And I was just thinking, if we cook this like a brisket, we'll render the fat, we'll get great bark, so we should maximize flavor, we should maximize juiciness, and we should maximize tenderness. So one of the things with open fire cooking is they don't take the meat all the way to low and slow barbecue tenderness temperatures, talking about 200, 205 degrees, something like that. The way we think of brisket or beef ribs or pork ribs or anything that gets cooked all the way to tenderness. So I'm thinking, what if we take this cut and look at it through an American barbecue lens? What could we create? Because I don't think anybody's really tried this. I'm sure that there's somebody who's done it, okay? Caveat, I'm sure somebody has done. I haven't seen it done, but I'm willing to try it because I think it's going to be extra special. We're going to keep it super simple. We're going to trim nothing the Argentine way. We're going to season it with salt and pepper only. Not quite the Argentine way, but kind of more of a Texas way. Salt and pepper only on the outside. Then we're going to cook it like a brisket, and we're going to just see what happens. I think it's going to be incredible, and my experience in barbecue tells me this is going to be really good, but there's no way to know until we try it. So let me get it out of the package, season it up, and get it on. We're going to start low and slow at 225 degrees with an oak fire. It is hot next to the smoker. Yeah, this thing is huge. Ugh. Not a ton of fat, but a little bit of fat all around it. Lots of salt and pepper. All right, before we put this on, two things. One is, I'm sick, you can probably hear it in my voice, but I'm gonna power through. The cook must go on. And then the second thing is, if this cut doesn't really exist in the United States, you might be asking, how did I get it? Well, I called up my friends at Porter Road and begged and pleaded with them, can you make this cut so I can cook it and find out if it's amazing? And they said, sure. And then I said, well, what if people wanna order it? And they said they will cut it fresh if people wanna order it. So I'm gonna put a link in the description. So if you wanna click on that, they will take your order and they will cut it fresh and ship it out to you. But with that said, let's get this thing on. So if you guys can't tell, this thing is absolutely humongous. I think this thing's about 16 pounds. It kind of reminds me of a beef shoulder clod, but this has a lot more fat and should end up a lot juicier. Whereas shoulder clod would end up like lean brisket, I think this is gonna, like the whole thing is gonna be like brisket point. There's no way to know until we cook it. Okay, at this point we are 2 hours in, and I want to see what the bark is looking like. I want to see what color we have on the outside. And the second thing I want to see is the temperature, because we have a layer of fat on the top and bottom, which is different than brisket. This might be a faster cooking cut than brisket is, because that eliminates a lot of the evaporative cooling that would take place. So let's open this thing up and take a peek. All right, looks like we're starting to render the fat here. Looks like we have good color for 2 hours in. Now, what I'm really curious about is the temperature, so let's see. 137, not bad. Here's the thick part. Yeah, only to 111. 108. Now the real question to how quickly this is going to cook is going to get answered when we hit the stall. Because typically when you hit the stall, that meat side of the brisket is sweating out a lot of water and cooling the brisket down. Because this isn't a brisket and has fat on both sides, I think it should push through the stall quickly, and it's not going to extend the cook by a serious length of time. But we're not going to know until we get there. We'll check back in with you when it gets to the stall. One thing I forgot to add, for the rest of the cook, we're going to run at 250 degrees all the way until we're finished. All right, it's been about 7 hours total, and I think it's about time to wrap this Vaso up. Oh, I'll arrange it like this. It kind of does look like a brisket. Look at that bark. That's nice. Let's take some temps here. 175, 173, 178, 168. This is a little lower than I would normally wrap, but I'm going to be a little bit more cautious with this cut of meat. Underside looks nice too. It doesn't have the same thickness of fat on it, and so I'm going to wrap it a little bit earlier. And of course, I'm going to throw in some Wagyu beef tallow. All right, I am a little bit disturbed at how much this looks like a brisket, even though it didn't really look much like a brisket at all when we started. So I got some Wagyu tallow in there, and time to wrap this thing up. All right, so it's wrapped up with some tallow in butcher paper like a brisket. It just feels like a humongous brisket. So for a brisket to be this size, it would have to be like a 22-pounder at this point, with all that gets trimmed off. This is huge. All right, time to put it back on. All right, guys, some mid-cook updates. So I was thinking maybe this is going to go faster than a brisket cook, and I think it's going slightly faster. So I would expect a brisket to be at that level of bark and that temperature maybe 9 hours in instead of 7. So slightly faster, but it's by no means a quick cook. It's definitely not an Argentine style, couple hours and it's done and amazing. But I think if we do it this way, it could be even more phenomenal because we're starting off with a better quality cut of meat. So brisket became like the smoking meat because it wasn't really good in any other application except for grinding up to make burgers. This can make 3 different amazing cuts. And so I think that this could be like the next level, like brisket 2.0. I don't know, we'll see. But I'm really hopeful. The bark on the outside looked and smelled incredible. And so we're not gonna know until we cut it open. But I'm gonna cook this thing until it feels tender, probably I'm guessing around 200. It might be a little lower than typical brisket, maybe 203 or so. So I'm guessing around 200. I'll let you guys know, but I'm not gonna force my wife to stay out here and record all that. And then we're gonna put it in the warmer at 145, just like we would a brisket. And then tomorrow, we're gonna slice it open and give it a taste test when I have fresh nose, fresh taste buds, all that stuff. I've not been surrounded by smoke for 14 hours beforehand. So the next time you see me, I'm gonna have that thing done. I'm gonna put it back on the chud table. We're gonna unwrap it, slice it up, and give it a taste test. I have really high hopes. All right, guys, it's the next day. So after a nice long rest, we're gonna unwrap this thing and see what it's like. Now, before I cut into this thing, I have to remember, this isn't the point, this isn't the flat. We're not gonna slice this the same way we would a brisket. This is actually 3 separate muscles. So we have, remember, the flank, the inside skirt, and the bavette. So I'm gonna cut this section off, and then I'm gonna cut this section into 2 parts, and we're gonna give it a taste test. So the smell is outrageous, and it's crazy juicy. Anytime I put any pressure on this thing, juices just leak out everywhere. So let's get to cutting. That's a weird looking brisket / the juiciest piece of beef. Juicier than beef ribs. That is insane. I'm not squeezing it. It's just, that's how juicy that is. Because it's got the fat on top and the bottom. That is unbelievable. All right. Well, I'm excited about this. Kind of like a brisket. I'm gonna give this a little squish. Yeah, that's freaking juicy. Yeah, this is ridiculous, man. This is so crazy. All right, I got to taste this. First up, let's cut a chunk of this relatively lean looking stuff. So this part is pretty lean. It's pretty exposed on both sides, but it's got great bark. Let's taste it. Oh. It melts. Unbelievable. That is unbelievably good. Good job, Porter Road. And before we cut into the rest of these, I need to tell you about today's sponsor, Porter Road. They make incredible beef and incredible pork. If you want the highest quality meat delivered to your door, you need to check out Porter Road. I've been using them for years. I recently went to visit one of their farms, and I can confidently say that there is nobody who's raising animals better than Porter Road is. Higher quality raising produces higher quality beef and higher quality pork, and you'll know when you taste it. Especially with the pork, you notice that it's just so much more flavorful than commodity pork. And then with beef, you get just a richness that you don't find in commodity beef. The marbling is intense, the flavor is intense, and if you're gonna spend 12 hours cooking something, you're gonna wanna make sure that it's of the highest quality because you don't wanna throw that time away. Your time is valuable, and you wanna spend your time cooking something that's gonna blow people's minds, and Porter Road is the answer. Another cool thing that they're doing for this is if you want to order one of these, Porter Road will cut it custom for you and send it to you. It's a big chunk of meat. You don't have to really trim anything off of it. You can put it on the smoker and get some barky, smoky, juicy meat. So they do the highest quality raising, and then they dry age the hanging carcass for 2 weeks. So you get some of those benefits of the enzymatic activity that breaks down connective tissue and increases the flavor without having the waste of dry aging individual cuts. So you have to cut off all the pellicle and then attempt to cook it. So Porter Road, I highly, highly recommend them. I'm going to put a link in the description if you're interested in ordering a Vaso or anything else that they make, because it's all wonderful quality stuff. Click on that link and check them out. I highly, highly recommend them. I've been using them for years. I know other barbecuers who love their stuff. So if you're in the market for some great quality meat, check them out. Link is in the description. Now let's cut into this faux point. I'm just gonna take a chunk off right here. Ooh, it's a different texture too. And you guys can see there's not a big layer of fat on here, but this is full of juice because it had a layer of fat on top and bottom that rendered really well. Okay. That is smoky and good. Oh, let me try a little bit of this. Here we have another muscle. I think this would be the inside skirt. Oh, all due respect to grilled skirt steak, but as my pappy used to say, you can't beat that with a stick. Man, this is good. This is even better than I thought it might be. The whole thing is just crazy juicy. I mean, guys, look at this. Look at this. I don't think there's a juicier piece of meat. It's like the richness of beef ribs with the texture of steak and the smokiness of brisket. Look at this piece. It's like the mother lode of burnt ends, and it is just insanely juicy as a piece of meat gets. So, pleasant surprise. So to sum things up, let me give you some thoughts here. This is actually similar in flavor to a brisket, but imagine the whole cut is like brisket lean. The difference is, imagine the juiciest lean you've ever had, double it, and you're probably close. So the texture is kind of the tighter grained, like, you know, the lean. And because there's a layer of fat above it, layer of fat in between, layer of fat below, it just locks in all that juice. It is the juiciest thing that I think I probably ever barbecued. That includes the bone-in brisket, that includes any rack of beef ribs. The texture, if you like that lean texture, but you want it to be crazy juicy, I think this might be the ticket. Also, in a future video, I'm going to use another one of these to cook open fire, because that's another amazing way to cook it, and it only takes, 3 hours, something like that. And that is a completely different experience. The outside is crunchy, the inside is still crazy juicy, but this is a wonderful cut I've fallen in love with. If you guys want to order one, you can check it out in the description. Regardless, I love experimenting with new things like this, and so this was a great opportunity to learn how this thing cooks in American-style barbecue. And let me tell you guys, it cooks freaking great. If you guys enjoyed this video, hit the like button down below, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. You can also follow me on Patreon, where this month we're announcing the winners of a brand new solution pit, a Smoke Slinger direct heat pit, a Super 55 drum, and who knows what else. So if you want to check that out, you can find me on Patreon at Mad Scientist BBQ. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you next time.